The Federal Reserve is leaving rates unchanged and forecasting a potential 2 cuts this year. Welcome back to the channel. We are going to be breaking down post FOMC action and what you need to know trading these fast markets. Now let's hop over to TradingView. I really hope you guys did not get chopped up today. So first and foremost, FOMC, it is a very volatile day. This is something that I said on stream. I said, you want to typically be done early if you are new to trading FOMC. Be done in the first 30 minutes and then stay away from the market. However, in my Discord, I gave a resource showing people examples of how you trade the post FOMC action, as well as the tendencies broken down on the chart. If you're interested in that, there's a link. Go ahead, join. You can check that out. Find it in the chat. But what I want to get into is how are we going to approach these markets moving forward? And what does it mean for you as a trader? In these markets, I'm sure you are not a stranger to the fact that a lot of people have been struggling. It has been a very difficult market. You take 2 seconds and scroll on Twitter and you see accounts blown and blown and blown. What I want to get to is this. When your edge is not clearly defined in a market, you need to take things slow. We're going to look at some charts. We're going to dissect what we think the next move might be. But you as a trader need to focus on only executing when your edge is present in the market. This is something that I help traders with, help them determine what is actually their best setup versus what is something that maybe they're acting on emotion about. What we're going to look at first and foremost is going to be ES. I mean, really, we're still in this range. So to kind of draw it out, we have this little box, this little accumulation, if you will. There's been a sweep to the downside right here. And then you have these higher lows potentially, right? You have this break without a close above. Not necessarily the strongest signal, but it could be worse. So my perspective is this. We're in a downtrend. We'd want to ideally see some sort of hold overnight, maybe a dip. Then we can start to look for an expansion into New York. My areas of interest would be essentially this historic or previous new week opening gap right here, right? Yeah, that new week opening gap, or potentially this swing high, if we're going to trade to the upside. So we have all of this area. We can clean it up, call it 5,800, make it real nice and simple for you guys. 5,800 is going to be my upside level of interest for us to reach for. If we could potentially form some sort of, range break right there, that would be nice. And if not, if we potentially kind of rally and then put in some sort of high formation, we have all of this. We have all of that to reach for. That would be the alternative scenario. In my mind, I believe we are closer to looking at the upside on ES specifically, just to kind of continue this little relief bounce. Where we end up topping out at on this bounce is to be decided, but what I like to look at typically in downtrends such as this one, you can take a fib, look at basically the entire price leg and go ahead and observe where equilibrium might be. So, the highest maybe 5,900 at some point in the next couple of days. But we have to factor in a couple things. Number one, yes, this is a failed move above, right? It did not close above here, but that does not mean that the next candle cannot go lower and then close above. So we do have the potential for a bullish expansion. The idea would be we want to evaluate the different time frames here and see, has there truly been a strong reversal signal in any of these time frames? I do like the idea that potentially down here, this is kind of the low. This would be the shift in structure. And then you're kind of getting this other end of it. So you would start to expect higher lows to form. We had all of these lower highs. Then you get to this flip. The idea would be higher lows from this point on. Does that materialize? We have to wait and see. But my objective, pretty much, I'll be looking for 5,800 the next couple of days. I feel like that could be a very reasonable approach to these markets. And remember, there is no strategy or no approach that is 100%. This is just stuff that I've used for years, and I have the data to support these decisions. I can be wrong as well as you can. The sooner you accept that uncertainty in trading, the better you'll do in the long run. Because if your read is wrong, don't push it. Accept that. Move forward with that. Say, you know what? Maybe today is not my day. Because if you trade understanding that today might not be your day, you live to trade another. If you try to force your will on the market, you simply won't make it. NQ, on the other hand, it appears we pretty much held this low. It feels like this one's holding a little bit higher than ES, but this right here is a pretty deep dip. You haven't broken that high, so that's a potential SMT right there. That would be a demerit, if you will, in the trade. I think that ES is obviously going to be a little bit stronger, but we'll look at the daily. Yeah, you can see the daily candle is not nearly as strong. ES closed essentially at the high. It closed right at the prior day high. So when you're comparing these assets, you want to look at just the differences you can observe. Any sort of observable characteristics will help you determine which market you should be looking to trade, because there will be times where certain markets will outperform others. We've said that before. Looking at YM, decent reaction. The post-news move was really, really, really nice. I cannot lie. You know, you get higher lows, pullbacks, and then you just target this, essentially this external range level. This is actually there's actually a trade in here that I called out in the Discord, just because it's, when I see something like this, it's so obvious to me. I'm going to put a screenshot out there and be like, take a look, right? It hurts. It doesn't take me any time to do. But even on a day like today, where I'm personally not trading in the afternoon, I'll always keep an eye on stuff. I'll always keep an eye on levels and keep alerts in the system. But yeah, moving forward, our main objective is really, can we break out of this range? Can we break out of this little consolidation down here? It doesn't matter what system you use. You can see that we are in a downtrend, and whether or not you're using some sort of volume profile, this accumulation right here, you can almost be certain that there will be some sort of, concentrated peak of volume. You get your little HVN right there. But again, this is stuff that I can just see without looking at the chart. There's no way that price is going to just sit here and not generate the volume that would be associated with your node. It's just how it works. For me, I'm more interested in what can I act on, because I can't act in a consolidation as clearly as I can when price begins to expand and then it forms some sort of solidified higher low, and then I can look to structure my entry on the lower time frame. That's how I like to play it. So for us, main objectives, as we said, it's going to really be this area. This will be like that line of defense. Whether or not we can get up here and hold above here, that's to be seen. So our target will be into that first area of like defense, right? So if price starts to roll over there, then we understand that maybe we have to wait a little bit for it to get back up. But the idea would be from point A to point B. This is not a trade I necessarily want to hang out in too long. Really just look for my fixed 2R, take it there. That's the system I'm looking to trade in this type of market. If I go back through some of the 2024 markets, and this is a practice that I go through with students all the time, I tell them to think back to a time where they were trading well. Go back, use TradeZella, backtest that, observe it, study it, see what is different about that versus where you're trading right now. Because if you can understand that markets rotate between, and this is some very, very, very simple but insightful stuff, you can have neutral markets where you're ranging, where pretty much any strategy will do well in terms of bullish or bearish. But if you're a predominantly bullish trader, you could even do well in a downtrend, right? Because there's bounces. However, we've had a persistently weak market. This is an insanely hard market to honestly short unless you're trading momentum, and then longing is almost impossible. So when you understand that we're in a persistently weak market, like an extremely weak market, buying's it's just not going to happen. However, on the other hand, there will be persistently strong trends where you might be like buying what seems like the tippy top, and there's certain traders who will struggle there. So besides a range and a trend on either direction, there's also strengths of trends. This has been very, very weak. So in this scenario, coming out of this range, I'm not exactly expecting it to be really, really, really quick off the open. I'm expecting to just look for some steady, consistent progress until we start digging back on some of these. This is all low-hanging fruit. These are all lower highs. None of this is like a very significant sweep and then go lower, significant sweep, then go lower. So when you get all of this, this is really clean. That's an easy run at some point, right? We're down into a level, maybe we start to see some sort of confirmation that this holds, and then the sky's the limit. We have all of this to trade back towards for the rest of the year. That's going to be the best type of trading. Boom, 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 take your pick. So what I want to leave you with is this. If you struggled today, don't feel too bad, but also understand you make a lot of the problems worse by continuing to use a flawed strategy or flawed perspective on the market. You need to stick to one good setup. So what I want you guys to do for the rest of the week, identify the most likely move of the day. Where do you think price is going to go? If you look at today's stream, I gave out a level where I thought it was going to hit on both YM and ES. Now, my executions could have been better. However, I didn't do any severe damage, so I'm not worried about that. My plan was on point. My targets were on point. That's what you need to focus on. Don't focus on trying to make the money. Don't try to focus on getting out of drawdown. Focus on one obvious trade. They say one good play. That's all you need. So with that being said, until next time, I hope you guys learned something. If this video helped you in any way, shape, or form, share it with a friend. If you have not yet subscribed, subscribe, like, leave a comment, and all of my links will be in the description as always. Until then, take care.